Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman Battle Network Operate Star Force. In the last part, we tried to use the Metro line. Turns out that we can't because internet problems. And now we're finally in Internet Area 2 to take care of that. Now here's the thing. At this point in Battle Network 2 and beyond, you're in a completely different part of the internet, and you'll notice that it probably at least has a different color set. The internet in Battle Network 1 is infamous for being the exact same tile set the entire time, making it pretty easy to get lost, especially on the GBA version. Less so here thanks to the map, but still, it's noticeably bad. With that said, in this fight we got two new viruses, the Miny one, which is the thing that's still alive, and the Volgear, the thing I murdered right off the bat. Miny's 100 HP, they do 100 damage to their mine attack, though, that randomly places a mine on a tile that you're not on your side of the field. But you can also get that battle chip from them, which does 160 damage? Although I believe it still randomly places the mine. You can't decide where it goes, unfortunately. The Volgear, on the other hand, 80 HP, does 15 damage with its fire tower attack, which it unleashes and it slowly tries to follow you across the screen. So as it moves left to right, it tries to track onto you very poorly, but noticeably. And I believe almost immediately we're going to be treated to our next new enemy. This is the Swordy 2. We haven't run into a Swordy 1 yet, but you can run into them in Internet Area 2. Swordy 2s are Fire Elemental, for one thing, which doesn't matter too much here in Operate Star Force, but it can later on in the original game. With that said, this is our first Elemental virus, which is where I can brag with the fact that since that thing is Fire Elemental, if you use a Water Elemental battleship on them, it'll do double damage. With that said, the thing is with them, they move towards the front row of their side of the stage, sometimes using area steals to increase the size of their stage, and they will attack you with either long swords, which means they can hit you across the entire width of your stage, or a wide sword if you're on the same, or if you're on the row in front of them, just not directly in front of them. Relatively simple enemies to take care of, but be careful because they can do some good damage. I think Swordy 2's 60 damage-ish, and here's Swordy 1s. They do the same thing, but you'll often find them in groups of more than one. With that said, I think their damage can actively depend. I want to say it depends on what type of sword they're using. I think a wide sword will do 40, a long sword will do 60, but then they can use a fighter sword, which is a 3-tile sword, which is 30, and I think for Swordy 2s, those stats are 60, 60, 30. Either way, the good news is they can easily group up with one behind the other, making them prime for taking out at the exact same time. And as I've mentioned, that's really good for getting battle chips because it counts that as a deletion bonus of sorts. That it's been doing that since the first game, technically. But it actively got marked as a double delete starting in, I want to say, BN3. It was either that or BN4. Either way, we want to come up here. Go. Go, go. What do you think you're doing? Gok, gok. Gok. Why would you want to do a thing like that? Gok, 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 gok. Now another World 3 crony. Get those rocks out of here. Gok. You're the one who's going to be deleted. Lan? Let's go, Mega Man. Battle routine set. Execute. I guess that was meant to be like an auto-translation program going on there or something. They only do that a couple times through the series. Either way, time for our next boss fight rather suddenly against Stoneman. Stoneman's only got 3 attacks. He can summon a rock cube elsewhere on your side of the field to just block you from using that square, using it to hit him. He can cause rocks to rain on your side of the field, I think 3 squares at a time, but maybe more with later variations. And his arms will occasionally disappear, show up somewhere on the field, and fire a laser down the rest of their row towards the left side of the screen. With that said, as you can see, he doesn't move, making him a prime target for program advances alongside some other things. With that said, I should note, I forgot to mention, the ways you want to get the battle chips from the previous enemies we've encountered this part. If you're trying to get the Mine 1 battle chip from the Miny enemy, you're going to want to get either a 5 or above. But you really want to get potentially a Mine 1 asterisk, which is 8 through S rank. Whereas after that, what was the enemy after that? It was the Volgears. Volgears are the really important one in that we've seen so far, though, because you can get the fire tower chips from them. The way those work is they fire a tower of fire down the row in front of you, one tile at a time, but as you move vertically, it tries to track onto you still. So you can kind of aim it by leading it into enemies who are potentially behind hazards on the field, like rock cubes or other things, should they be, necessary. With that said, if you want to get it, you're going to have to do relatively well in that fight. I think 5 or above generally is actually, I think, the rule for a lot of battle chips, but you especially want potentially Fire Tower F, which is ranks 5 and 6, E, which is 7 through 10, or Asterisk here and operates Shooting Star/Star Force, which is 8 through S. But that said, that's Stoneman. He's kind of easy. Almost disgustingly so, even with the battleships you can get at this point in the game. Land. We did it. Right on. Let's get the security program running. Leave it to me. This should let the metro line open safely. Let's hurry up and get to that power-up program. Okay. So I think the implication of what's going on here is that Digital Rock made the systems think there was a landslide, and that's what was really going on here. It's very odd and vague, and like they didn't really care about plot too much in BN1 because it was a relatively big experiment for the series in general that, from what we could tell, developed a lot even during its own development span, just from earlier screenshots and stuff. But that said, we have a new enemy here. This is the Hardhead, or as it's known in the original game, a Howitzer. These things are completely invincible to attack unless they are attacking. You're going to do that when they shake slightly in later games, or if they just open up and become red. They have 60 HP, do 30 damage, but as you can see, their attacks also can destroy panels, so you can easily corner yourself if you're not keeping them into big account with other enemies. With that said, you can also get the cannonball chip from them, which acts like a bomb battle chip that can just destroy a panel on the enemy's field, or I guess even technically yours, depending on where you're aiming. If you want to get that, you need to, I think, get rank 7 and above. And they don't come in very good codes, but you're going to want a Howitzer H for later on in order to do a particular chip trade. Now, the two sortie viruses we run into this part so far are a little bit interesting when it comes to their battle chips, in that the sortie line in general only drops sword-type chips, but the sortie in particular can drop the exclusive longsword chip. And there's a Fire Tower Asterisk that's going straight in my folder. That's a really good battle chip in Battle Network 1. Longsword reaches 2 squares forward rather than 1, so think of it like 2 swords stacked on top of each other range-wise. For, I think, 100 damage or 80 in one of the games, but I can't remember which. It's usually 80 in games moving forward, but I believe it's like 100 in this one. And you can use those with a sword and wide sword chip of the same code in the order of sword, wide sword, long sword to do the Zeta Sword program advance, which does... It essentially turns you, I think, invincible for a few seconds. And bada bing, bada boom, you can use swords infinitely during that, I think in the order of sword, longsword, wide sword, longsword. Not useful in this game because Battle Network 2 onwards perfected it with the life sword program advance, which is just all 3 combined for 1 mega damage strike. The Sortie 2 is more important when it comes to battle chips though, because at 7 through S, it can drop the Fire Sword chip, which I believe has the range of a wide sword from memory, but it's fire elemental. And this is where we can start getting really big into elemental affinities, especially with an upcoming boss fight in a few minutes, so I'll save that rant for then. With that said, let's now head over to the government complex to see our dad, or should I say do a minor side quest.
I seem to have lost my t-shirt. Have you seen him? I lost him in the park somewhere. If you find him, please bring him back.
Battle Network 1 doesn't really mark its minor side quests like this. Not that many of them are super important for getting notably good items, but Battle Network 2 Beyond would introduce something known as the request system, where you go to a board, accept a side quest, blah blah blah. BN1 really shows its age. This is a very interesting chip trade right here. You can give this guy one of every single code of the escape chip to get a Knight Sword G, which is a very good chip, but if you're playing the original Megaman Battle Network, don't do it. Because in Megaman Battle Network 1 Original Game Boy Advance, escape chips are the only way to escape, and there's only one of each code in the game, technically. There are ways to get repeats of them, but we won't be getting to that until a certain shop opens up in the game. With that said, let's give those dentures to the old guy.
Oh, yes, I'm a dentist.
Well, thank you kindly. Now Zach can talk normal. Take this. Recover 80 asterisk would be useful in this game outside of library completion, if it weren't for the fact that I think recovery chips in Operate Star Force are still screen dimming. I say I think because remembering how they work in the first game into HP recovering between battles anyway makes me never use them. Battle Number 2 onwards, that's a different story. This is the station for the government complex. And if you ever want to use the Metro line again, just use the little registers there, grab a ticket, and you're good to go. If you grab the wrong one, you can investigate the registers again to swap your tickets, by the way. Not that you're going to do that too often. Usually I find you're going to go through the thing, realize you went to the wrong place, and then just go back through it anyway. With that said, welcome to the government complex proper, probably the busiest area in the game, not only in terms of NPC count, but in terms of how much you can do in it, period. Because there's a lot of minor computers here for you to get things in, a lot of viruses to fight, a couple of minor computers that even connect to the main internet, and a lot of plot things at numbers A through J. You're going to be doing a lot here. And it's all with the exact same theme as AC/DC. Battle Network 1 only has the one overworld theme when you're not in a crisis, and, oh boy, at least it's a good song. Would you like an all-natural lunch? Sure. Here you go. Lan ate a tasty and nutritious lunch. I kind of like you. My name is Sal. I work with the net to protect nature. There's so many viruses about lately. Would you like to practice net battling with me? Lan, would you like to challenge Sal? Sure. I shall show you the power of nature. Woodman, come forth. Time for our first proper optional boss fight against Woodman, who can be a little bit of a problem because his movement method's atypical. Plus, he's technically the first boss to have super armor, meaning he doesn't technically flinch to anything. His main attack is to jump across the field, causing 3 to 5 wood towers to sprout from your side of the field randomly, which means you have to be pretty quick on the dodge with them. Additionally, he can also fire a couple of seeds down his row at the player, which will sprout and become wood seeds that will then try to track onto you like the Volgear's own fire tower attack. He can press down on a panel and cause wood towers to come out even more randomly like that, and usually in higher amounts. He has an attack which is odd. He can generate a seed which will then grow into a tree. If that tree isn't destroyed by you, it'll hatch into an apple, which will then heal Woodman. With that said, Gut Shoot's still kind of ridiculously broken. There's a reason some people ban it for their LPs, but I'm all about efficiency. Oops, looks like I lost. I guess that I'm safe in giving this to you. And we get /Cell. So now we can access another internet area with her link. You can use that to get into the net around here. There's a net merchant selling powerful chips. Why don't you visit him? Please, help me by protecting nature. In particular, I believe she's mentioning Internet Area 3 by name directly? Or more or less. But also make sure you jack directly into her computer, because not only are there a couple of other new viruses for us to fight in here, but we also need to get her at, so we can access her PC from the internet and vice versa. With that said, we do have some new enemies in here, like this. This is a popper. These guys will hop randomly around the enemy side of the field, only being damageable when they pop down from the ceiling and shooting a wood tower out from them. They are very weak, though. As you can see, a fire tower or a fireman ship is more than enough to take them out, partially because they are wood elemental. Popper 1's only battle chip, by the way, is Wood Tower, which does 140 damage, works like Fire Tower in that you can lead it around, and they only drop that from rank 5 through S. And you especially want to get 8 through S for the potential drop of an asterisk. And the next virus is a Cloudy 2. This virus we haven't seen into at all. We run like the stories, running into the second ones first. The way they work is they stay in one place, hopping up and down to do their attacks, and even when they're not attacking, they're still doing it to dodge yours. Their attacks are clouds that rain across a column, going back and forth a couple times. Pretty easy to dodge, but later variations of them not only have more health, they jump up faster, and their clouds move faster. I think they generate them more quickly, too. So they can keep you on your toes a little bit. Cloudy 2s, they can only drop their cloudier battle chips at rank 5 through S. I genuinely forget how it works, though, because I never use it. Honestly, if I'm using any elemental chips at all, I'm using Wood Tower, Fire Tower, or Fireman, or some of the other Navi chips later on. With that said, I should note, I've been mentioning elements, this part in particular, a little bit last part. The Battle Network games have an elemental chain reaction of sorts, similar to the weakness chain from Pokemon, in that in Pokemon, fire types do more damage to grass types, do more damage to water, of course. In Battle Network 1 in particular, later games add more elements of a sort. The 5 elements are None, Wood, Elec, Aqua, and Fire, and they, barring none, they all do double damage to the next one in that chain. So Fire does double damage to Wood, does double damage to Electric, does double damage to Aqua. Using that makes some chips very useful against certain viruses in order to getting their best coded chips, or even the ones that are just generally a pain in the ass to get. With that said, it's not too important in Battle Network 1. It's a little more important in Battle Network 1 GBA, but here in Operate Star Force, I'd argue, barring maybe using fire chips against Woodman to potentially knock him down faster, or the odd electric chip on a certain Navi later on to potentially make things easier for you, it's not too big of a deal. Things like Gut Shoot, another Battle Program advance we're going to be getting later on, and the like, are all you're really going to need. Plus, I'd argue elements are more interesting in the second game Beyond anyway, because not only are there a few more of them that are just, like, minor, but they're used more effectively against you as well in the second game due to some new mechanics. With that said, time for a new virus type. These are Raddies. They move very erratically across the screen. Slowly at first, but the more times you hit them, the more active they get, to the point where they become really annoying. Every 3 or 4 teleports, they fire their Raton chip at you, which goes across the field from them until it hits the column you're on, in which case it tries to move up or down as need be to try and hit you. They're not too bad in Battle Network 1, especially because I tend to find they try and be on the same row as each other for some reason. But later variations of them and later games of them, they get super annoying. The Raton chip works the same way their attack does, in that it goes across the screen until it's on the same column as the enemy, in which case it tries to move into them. If you want to get the Raton chip, I believe, as usual, it is rank 5 and above. I would personally recommend getting Raton 1Bs if you want them, which is 7 and above, rank-wise, but not too useful outside maybe their program advance. I can't even remember if that was in this game. And the reason I say that is because later games incentivize using the other program advances in the game, in fact, all of them in some way or another. In Battle Network 1, there's no such thing as the Program Advanced memo, which is how they note down which program advances you've used. And that stayed that way for Operate Star Force, so there's really no reason to use program advances besides the really good ones. But now we got a new enemy. This is a Puffy. Puffies stay where they are and release bubbles that bounce around, and when they're destroyed, they cause explosions. What element the explosion is depends on the Puffy virus. This is Fire Elemental because it's a Puffy 2, technically. Puffy 1s that are found later on do Water Elemental versions of it. With that said, their battle chip, I believe, is the Bubbler battle chip from memory? No, it's Heater, which they drop from rank 5 and above in the F, G, and K codes. With that said, our main purpose here in the government complex isn't to be here in the waterworks, which is the first section they go into for some reason. It's to go to Dad's lab over at the Scilab, so we need to come over here. I always felt like they should have mirrored the layout of this place so that Scilab's there first, because it's the more important place to be. But I guess they want you to recognize where the waterworks are just from seeing the sign, and then go there. With that said, there's also another vending machine we can jack into on this side of the facility. And, well, as usual, it's a minor computer, so there's some mystery data to get, which can be either some battle chips or Zenny, so we're going to want to grab that. I feel they genuinely did a better job about making minor computers more useful in the later games to go into, because they usually had better items in them, or at least more effective amounts of Zenny. And I think they also made it so that some viruses were more common in there versus internet areas, so it's just better to be in there rather than the other. Oh, actually, wait, no. For some reason, I was thinking that you could run into the Puffy 1s here. I think in the last vending machine, you can run into Puffy 1 and 2s. Whereas in here, we can run into Volgear 1 and Volgear 2s. And I believe I'm looking for a Volgear 2 right now. Yep, there they are. 120 HP. I think they do 50 damage. And behavior-wise, they're the exact same. In fact, one thing I forgot to mention about Volgears is that they try to stay on the rows you're not on. So you can generally try to bait them into chips, as I just did there. With that said, their attacks are the same, just water elemental. They try to track into you and all that. And they drop a chip that does the exact same thing as Fire Tower, just aqua elemental. In particular, it is Water Tower, which comes in the codes of, I think, R, H, G, and Asterisk. But again, since there's an Asterisk here in Operate Star Force at ranks 8 through S, that's going to be the one you're going to want to get because it's so much easier to build folders around that. Or at least accentuate builds you want to make. Whenever I see this section, though, I immediately get flashbacks to when I first tried playing Battle Network 1, because I played BN1 last out of the main 6 games, and I'd had a hell of a time trying to figure out where to go here because I didn't think to talk to NPCs. Later games either require that less, or they just tell you to go to your objective, so having to talk to one deliberately to go to my objective was a little bit odd. Here we're using the power of science to improve our life. Can I help you? Yes, you can. You talk to Hikari's son? I think he's in his lab. Wanna go? Yes. Then please use that elevator. The elevator program will take you there automatically. So now we can play the game. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, we're going to go talk to Dad. See you guys then.